not to say I miss being single because, I like where I'm at, but I wish I was single again. Like, not necessarily that, but like there were times in my single life that I look back on now and I'm like, that was a fun time, like that I could have probably used more wisely, or I could have made better decisions, or just enjoyed the moment more rather than just being like, ugh, and wallowing in like, I wish I was married, rather than just like, hey, look, you have no commitments, you have no kids,
Yeah.
you don't have a husband to answer to. Go have fun, like within reason, obviously. And not that
Yeah.
I'm like tied down or anything, but like I said, I love the phase I'm in and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But it's really easy when you're in a certain phase to just wish it away and not enjoy to the fullest the phase you're in, because you're so much anticipating the next phase.
God's grace shining on our face today. Growing in His word each and every way. Here, morning rays of grace.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of Morning Rays of Grace. If you are tuning in on YouTube, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you are tuning in on any of the podcast platforms, be sure to rate and review. And you can share that too. Okay, guys, we have a special guest with us today. She is my former coworker, which means she is still an accountant. She is a sister. She is a friend. She is a woman of God. She is a wife and a mom. And today she is going to be talking about God's grace in her single life, married life, and life as a mom. So, without further ado, let's jump into the
So
conversation.
I'm very thankful and grateful that you are here, because I know that you do not like talking in front of people, even though it's just me and you conversating. But I do know how this is for you. So I'm very grateful and thankful that you are able to join us today, Katie.
I'm glad to be here.
I want to just start off before we get into the whole topic conversation. I want to just start off by you telling the people how we kind of met, in the sense of how we kind of built our relationship in the workplace and things like that.
Yeah, sure. So I got hired at Novogradic, where we do accounting stuff, in January 2018. And I just got assigned a random cubicle and a random team. And Angelica was the cubicle right next to mine.
Right.
And she was on my team. And I'm not really great at making friends. So Angelica and I would just kind of randomly make small talk. A lot of times, neither of us even got up from our cube. We would just talk over behind us over the cube and stuff. And I remember there was one day that Angelica had, well, even before that, I remember when I got hired, I remember just praying and asking God to like give me a coworker, give me a friend that was a Christian that we could like I could relate to. We could have conversations about that.
And I
Um,
literally prayed the same thing. I prayed for a Christian cubemate for that year.
Funny how God works. And so I remember there's one day that Angelica was like, "Hey, what kind of music do you listen to?" And I was like, and I just kind of named a couple random bands or whatever. And then she was like, "Do you listen to Jesus music?" And I was like, "I do, actually." I don't know why I didn't say that to start, but I do. And that's kind of where our friendship, I feel like, kind of took off. Like we were like small talk friends before that. And but once Angelica kind of planted that seed, that's kind of where we went from there. And um I feel like our friendship just grew. We like I said, we would talk in our cubes all the time. We played office pranks on some of our managers. Just yeah, it was really good to have that relationship, and even greater that it was a Christian relationship, to have in the workplace, because I don't think that's very common. I don't have that now. The same company, I don't have a Christian coworker that I know of, that I'm aware of. So now that Angelica doesn't work there anymore, it's something I miss for sure.
Aww. Yes, and that story is just funny to me every time. And I had the privilege of knowing you in your single life, and now you're married, and now you are a mom, and well, a mom of two now. One is cooking in the oven, and just wanted to have you on here to share your journey and because I have known you during all three of those periods. I didn't know you, your whole single life, but I know that even at work, we would, talk about single life and wanting to be married and things like that. So I'm grateful that God has been working in your life in this area. So I'm really thankful to see it. Just the first thing is, how long have you been married and how did you guys meet?
So I met my husband in 2017 in the summer. We both played soccer in college. And so we were both attending this FCA soccer camp as like camp counselors kind of thing. And we met in 2017 there. And I think initially there was like a little spark. Both of us were kind of like, interested. But we kind of, after the camp, we tried, we got each other's numbers and texted a few times, tried to meet up. I canceled, he canceled, different reasons, and then just kind of fizzled and nothing really happened. Then the next year, same camp, 2018, same thing. We met. I still had those bubbly feelings, but my husband was dating somebody else at the time. So imagine he didn't reciprocate those at the time. And then, so yeah, again, nothing happened. And then 2019 comes around, same camp again. We're both single and we're both just kind of feeling it again, just like, all right, now it's time or whatever. So we started talking a little bit more throughout the camp. He mentioned, like, hey, let's get dinner after. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. We'll see if it happens this time. And it did. So we ended up going on a first date shortly after that. And things kind of just progressed from there. So that was 2019 is when we started dating in the summer. And then 2020 in the summer, probably a week after we started dating, in 2020, or a year and a week after, was when we got married. So we're at roughly 2 or 3.5 years now, married at this point. Yeah.
I love that. How has married life been treating you so far? How have you been enjoying it? How
Yeah.
is it?
Overall, it's really great. I mean, I love being married. I love like just the companionship and the teamwork that comes with it. Obviously, there's going to be ups and downs. I mean, I'm sure everybody has heard at one point from somebody that marriage is hard. Marriage isn't just this easy cakewalk, and I think that can definitely be maybe not deterring, but like a little bit scary for people who aren't married. Like, oh, marriage is hard. Like, shouldn't be hard. From the outside perspective, if you've never been married, you just think like, oh, well, it should be great if you love each other. It shouldn't be hard, but I mean, you're learning how to basically do life with a whole other person, like your whole single life. And even if you're dating, like if you're in high school or if it's not as much of a serious relationship, like you're not putting that person's needs just at the same level as your own. Like you see them on the weekends, you see them at school kind of thing. Like it's very different when you're married because you're now at this, like, it's like it was just you and now it's another person and your needs are just as important as each other. And you have to, you have to meet your needs, but at the same time, you have to consider Danny's, my husband, Danny's needs and his opinions when I'm making a decision. Just something like super small, but like if my family's like, hey, we're going to do a family dinner. If I just respond like, yep, we'll be there, that seems fine. I would have done that before. Like, yeah, my schedule's good, but it's like, oh, well, I got to go. I have to check with my husband, make sure his schedule's good, make sure, he's feeling like, yeah, let's go do that. Like, it's not just me anymore. And obviously that's a really small decision, but there's all sorts of decisions and stuff. And that was something in the beginning that was a little bit challenging, is just kind of making that just like second nature to in my brain, like not having to think about like, oh, I need to make sure Danny's okay with this. Like, and now I feel like it comes more naturally. Like I don't make decisions. I don't just say yes to things until we've talked about it. And same for him as well. Marriage is obviously hard from, those perspectives and stuff. But it's so sweet. It's something that's difficult, but definitely worth, without like a question. Like it's not something I'm like, oh, well, if I had known it was this hard, I wouldn't be in it. Like it's something, even if I knew all the challenges ahead of time, like it's something I would want. Like it's been very, very sweet.
So it's rewarding, I guess you would say, like very
Yeah.
rewarding. Yeah. That's so good. Okay, so I know that, once upon a time you were single and I am single and people watching this are single. What was did you ever lose like hopelessness in your single life when it came to, wanting to be married? And what was your level of desire in your single life when you were of wanting to be married? Because, for example, for me, it was like I I have these wavelengths of when I'm like, okay, marriage, I really don't want to do that. I'm fine being single for the rest of my life. And then there are moments like, you know what, I do want a husband. Like I do want that and I desire that. So sometimes my desire level kind of goes up and down. What was your kind of desire level in your singleness? And did you ever hit a point of hopelessness in that desire? Or were you just like, you know what, I'm gonna keep praying until it happens? What was your kind of level of desire?
It was pretty high. I've never really been a person that enjoy like I don't love being alone all the time, I guess. I mean, obviously I enjoy my alone time. But I've always just like kind of longed for that companionship. Growing up, I really didn't date much. Like, I had interests obviously and stuff, but I mean, there were probably I think maybe two or three that I actually called my boyfriend before Danny, and very short-lived relationships. Danny was the first time I really ever had like a serious relationship. And I think that because of that, I was very, maybe, I don't know if discouraged is the right word, but not very hopeful that it would happen because I hadn't seen a serious relationship in my life. In like for me, like I hadn't had a serious relationship that ever felt like it was really going somewhere. And
Yeah.
so because of that, I just kind of felt like, well, it won't happen then. If I haven't had that, I don't even know what that feels like kind of thing. I've never been with somebody where I was like, yeah, I want to marry this person. I can see it happening. It's just a matter of time. Like until I met Danny, that was never a thing. I always kind of knew that the relationship I was in wasn't really what God wanted for me. And so yeah, I definitely like lost hope. And like, I mean, I was 23 when before we started dating, I think, or when I got married. I don't remember, one of the two, but either way, that's relatively young.
Yeah.
To be like losing hope in finding a husband. But it feels so old, like you're graduating college, you have a job, and it's just like, well, not going to meet him at my job unless some stud gets hired. There's not really anybody at my church, like, and obviously like, and so it's just really easy to like lose hope in it. And I know I did. I definitely felt like I don't know if it's ever going to happen for me, but I kind of was holding on to this hope because I did really want it. And I wanted to be married. I wanted that just cookie cutter, like get married, have kids, kind of routine like that I kind of craved and stuff. And now that I have it, I see why I craved it, because I do love it. I do believe what God's plan was for my life. Like, but yeah, yeah. So to sum up your question, yes, I did have a very high desire and I did lose hope.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned your like age or range as well, because I was gonna ask you if it was okay to state your age and also the decade that you are in right now. You're in your second decade of life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, some people are, I'm in my third decade of life, some people are in their third, fourth, fifth, and have not either been married or had a child or both. And it can seem daunting, because you want something so bad and God has not delivered. And even if you've heard like it prophesied, or you hearing from God like, I'm going to give you a husband or I'm going to give you a child, and that thing just has not been fulfilled yet, it can be a little weighty. Have you ever, and I'm kind of veering off a little, have you ever had that experience where you, or if you're still waiting for God to do something in your life that you feel like he's promised you, or you've been in prayer about constantly, that has not been fulfilled? Because obviously, the husband is there, the kids are there. Is there anything else in your life that is like, man, God, I've been praying for this for a while, or I've just recently started praying for this, and you're still waiting on him to deliver?
I mean, not really. I mean, by no means is my life like perfect and I don't need anything kind of thing, but I feel like I've seen just random, I've seen like some memes or whatever that have said like 5 years ago, what you have now 5 years ago is what you were praying for. And it's just crazy to think about. Like, I mean, I definitely was praying. Like, I prayed for Danny before I met him. I prayed that I would have a husband, that I would be able to have kids and stuff like that. And like, it's crazy to think like those prayers are answered. But like, that doesn't, like, when I get married, I don't think like, oh yes, check, God answered that prayer. Like, but like now, like kind of just thinking about it, like hindsight, I'm like, I mean, I prayed for these things, then I now have like, so I wouldn't say there's anything right now that I'm like waiting on God or praying to God for, but I can definitely see like his fruitfulness in my life. Like the things that I have now, I did pray for.
Yeah, that's good. So what would be in your single season, what would you say was the hardest thing about waiting for Danny to come, or him to like show up, like God to just show him in your life? What was kind of the hardest part of being single?
I think just, the not knowing, the fact that it's not in my timing. I can force myself to meet somebody and force myself to date them and it not be the right person. And that, like, I don't control my destiny in that way. Like, that's God's timing and stuff. And I didn't know if it was going to be 5 years, if it was going to be 10, if it was going to be 2, if it was tomorrow, if it was never. Like, I think that I'm a very type A person, like to be in control. And so not having control is hard. And I struggled with that a lot when I was single. Just not having control of the big events in my life for the most part. Like, obviously you have like some type of control, but like from that aspect of timing, like when God wants me to meet Danny, when God wanted us to start dating, that was his timing. So that was hard. And I think in addition to that, just being content where I was at, and not just wishing away a season of my life.
Yeah.
I even find that I do that now where I'm like, oh, Ryland's cute now, but just wait till she's 2, or just wait till she can walk, or she can, I don't even talk or whatever, and it's like, yeah, those phases are going to be really sweet when they get here. But like, now I miss the crawling phase. Like, I miss when she used to just crawl, or when she just used to lay there, and when she had her first laugh. Like, I miss the previous phases. And like, not to say I miss being single, because I like where I'm at, but I wish I was single again. Like, not necessarily that, but like, there were times in my single life that I look back on now and I'm like, that was a fun time, like that I could have probably used more wisely, or I could have made better decisions, or just enjoyed the moment more, rather than just being like, ugh, and wallowing in like, I wish I was married, rather than just like, hey, look, you have no commitments, you have no kids,
Yeah.
you don't have a husband to answer to, go have fun, like within reason, obviously. And not that
Yeah.
I'm like tied down or anything, but like I said, I love the phase I'm in and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But it's really easy when you're in a certain phase to just wish it away, and not enjoy to the fullest the phase you're in, because you're so much anticipating the next phase.
I think that is so good. Like, really enjoying where you are right now, where God has you, being content, living in the moment, and really, man, soaking it all in, because that season is not gonna last. And when you do get in another season, it's like, wait, I kind of just flew by that season, and there were gems and precious things in that moment that I missed. And sometimes we just have to slow down in order to see them, in order for God to really work in our lives. So I love that. And that is a struggle even for me sometimes, just to live in the moment, Angelica, and focus on the good things. Because when you are in this new season and you may be busy or whatever the case may be, just new life, you're going to look back and be like, man, that was a good time, or that I did like that particular thing about that season. My next question would be about, so I know that a lot of people want to be in a state of readiness when they are ready to get married. Like, oh man, are you really ready to get married? Are you really ready to spend your life with somebody? Do you think you and your husband were both ready? Were there any like baggage that you guys may have brought into the relationship, like, or trauma that you guys are still kind of like being patient with one another to get through? But is that something that you guys have had to or still kind of have to deal with, like navigating? I know there are little small things, like you were saying, you have to, consult with your husband about this, and now you can't do, you have to have someone else opinion, so to speak, in your life decision making. But is there something that you guys had to work through, maybe trauma or places that aren't healed yet, and how you guys really collided two people together to be one, and what that looked like?
Yes, definitely. So I think when we did start dating, I think we were ready for each other, and we were ready to pursue a real, like a serious relationship for marriage, headed towards marriage. Um, I think in 2017 when we first met, I don't think we were. I don't think either of us were in a spot that was ready to get married in a year or even a couple years. And then maybe if we started dating in 2017, maybe it wouldn't. I mean, obviously it's in God's hands, but like maybe that wouldn't have been the time for us, and it wouldn't have worked out. Um, so I think there was purpose in God's plan for us, not dating until we were ready for each other, which was 2 years after we met. And I do remember, like, I I've struggled with anxiety most of my life, and it hasn't really been too bad. It's been little things, and just kind of like I was saying, like control based. Like I'm a little type A OCD, a little likes to be in control. So that's kind of where a lot of my anxiety is stemmed from. And when we first started dating, and even into early on in our marriage, my anxiety got a lot worse than it's ever been in my life. And it was really hard. Like I struggled a lot with, like, just like these intrusive thoughts, like, is he the right one, or is the reason I'm questioning it, is that God telling me no? And I just like battled in my head with it, and it took a while to move past those anxieties. And I had a really hard time with it, and I was very hesitant to tell Danny at first about my anxiety, because I'm like, my anxiety is literally about you. I'm not sure if God wants me to be with you. So that's a really hard thing to tell somebody. I don't even know how I would have received that if he had told me that. So I was scared to tell him, and eventually I did. And that was definitely the best decision I've ever made, in our relationship. Like I, without God's help and Danny's help, I don't think that I think I would still be struggling with the kind of crippling anxiety that I was today. But he helped, he was patient with me. He was loving. He helped me work through that. Even though it was about him, like he was able to really just like pray with me, and help research ways, like how can we move past this, what are some techniques we can use and stuff. And like I said, like without Danny's help, that would have been really hard to do on my own, because it felt like, well, I'm hiding this anxiety from him, but it's about him, so I don't want to tell him, kind of thing. And I think during that time I just really really focused as well on like verses that talk about anxiety, or trusting in God, specifically like Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, where it talks about to trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And I remember when I would get into like just having like an anxiety attack, I would just kind of like recite verses like that, or songs about it, like trusting in the Lord, that I knew, and it just kind of helped me like kind of breathe through it. Psalm 23 as well, where just, the Lord is my shepherd. That whole psalm was really, really helpful as well. But now, like I said, I've found, things that work for me, godly techniques, as far as like, praying, reciting verses, as well as worldly, where it's more just, not letting it just focus in my head and stuff like that. But yeah, now it's made our marriage sweeter and closer, and more intimate, just sharing that together, I guess. But yeah, sorry, that was a really long-winded answer to your question.
No, it was great, and it was so much information in that. Do you think that vulnerability and support plays a major part in relationships, period, and marriages? And how, if you would not have told Danny that, do you think you would still be like dwelling in that? Like, how important has vulnerability and support been in your marriage thus far?
Huge. I think that while not telling him isn't necessarily lying, it's keeping something from somebody, and like from your spouse, and for no real reason either, like I said, like it was hard to come to him with it because it was about him, but being completely vulnerable with your spouse is just it's hard to put into words, but like I can't really stress how important that is. Like there's really nothing that there should be nothing that or you have in your brain that you don't share with your spouse, because I don't know. I think it kind of comes down to the heart issue. Like if you're not sharing it, well, why aren't you, kind of thing. Like obviously I don't just like he comes home and I just word vomit every single thing that's in my brain to him all the time, and if I don't, that
Yeah.
means I'm lying to him. Like obviously that's not where I'm coming from, but like I think, like I said, it comes down to the heart issue. Like if there's something that I'm intentionally not telling Danny for whatever reason, maybe examine what that reason is, because it's probably not good enough. um
Yeah.
and just, yeah, like being open and honest with each other. Like he knows everything about me, I know everything about him, and I just think that's really important in a marriage as well, because you grow spiritually together, you grow um emotionally together, the more you know about each other, and like the more he knows about me, the more he can help me in those situations, and vice versa. And to answer your question, do I think I'd still be dwelling on it? I think so. Like even if his tactics didn't help me like get out of the anxiety that I was in, it was
Yeah.
still based around him, and I would have anxiety about not telling him, and then I would have anxiety if I need to tell him and stuff like that. And yeah, I definitely think I would still be struggling with it in some capacity if I didn't talk to him about it early on.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, really quick. I know I did not touch about the mom stuff yet. So how is mom life? How is it, because you guys had a baby fairly quickly. You didn't wait 5 years or whatever. You guys got right into it. So how is that navigating marriage and being a mom, and how it has being a mom just, made you feel?
It's been great. Like you say, yeah, we didn't wait too long. We waited about a year after getting married and then got pregnant. So married in 2020 in July, and then had Rylan, our daughter, in April of 2022. So she's a year and a half old now. And I'm currently 30 weeks pregnant with our son, whose name will be Owen. So I'm due late January with him, and it's been really, really sweet. It's given life like a new purpose. Obviously, I had a purpose before, but a different purpose, a little bit different
Yeah.
trajectory in our lives. But just like having somebody that like 100%, especially when they're younger, but even still 100% like is dependent on you for survival is daunting, but just so meaningful. Like seeing somebody love you so unconditionally, like she doesn't know anything but to like love her mom, kind of thing. And obviously, she's a toddler, so terrible twos and stuff. Like she's no perfect angel, but
Yeah.
she's just, it's very sweet to like see, I don't know, when she says my name or wants me to hold her, or just wants to be near me. It's sweet. It gives me a new appreciation for my mom, my dad. As far as affecting our marriage, or how it's affected our marriage, like it definitely has, put strains on it in certain times. Like we now are no longer the only priority in each other's lives, so to speak. We now have a shared priority of a child, and taking care of that child. And it's difficult too to find the balance between like, okay, well, like we still need to make time for each other. Like our marriage is still, you know, very important, and still a sole focus in our lives that like we need to prioritize. And it's really easy sometimes just be like, well, I'm tired, I don't really feel like going on a date this week or next week, or I'd rather just, let's just stay home, we'll be fine, kind of thing. And it's
Yeah.
easy to push that off, especially early on. But I think making time for each other is very important, especially as they get older and they need you more or less or whatever it may be. And the more kids you have, I know that's gonna once we add Owen, I know it'll add a new dynamic to the family as well, and to our marriage. But on the other side of that too, it's been really sweet to watch Danny be a dad. And it's made me not necessarily love him more, I guess, but love him in different, different ways. Like I've seen him be a sweet dad to her and play with her. And like one of my favorite things is just like kind of sitting on the couch and watching them play together, run around the house. And it's just like
Aw.
a sweet relationship. And I love that they have that relationship. And that's been watching your spouse become a parent is a really sweet thing.
I love that. Well, thank you. I'm gonna end off with this last question, wrap up with this last question. Do you have any wisdom or encouragement that you want to give either single, married moms, or all three? Do you have anything of encouragement that you want to share?
Um, I guess just, if you're single, be patient. And also while you're being patient, know that marriage isn't promised. I think people get caught up a lot of times in like, okay, well, I'll be patient because I know it'll come someday. And it, I would say the majority of people do get married, but that doesn't make it a promise. God never promises that we'll get married. And so I think that's important to like learn contentment where you're at.
Mhm.
Um, and also prepare yourself for marriage while you're single. Be the person that you're looking for. I remember there was a time in my life where I was like, I want to get married, but I was like, the guy that I would want isn't going to want me right now. Like there's
Mm.
my life I need to improve because I'm going to have to settle because I'm not going to find the guy that I want because that guy's not going to want me right now.
That's good.
And like I said, I think that's why Danny and I didn't end up starting to date until 2019 because he shouldn't have wanted me in 2017 when we first met. And so something that's meant to be, then it'll be. And it'll happen on his timing, not ours. So focus on how you can further God's kingdom now in your single life. And don't wish away phases of your life. Enjoy where you're at.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying yes to my request for coming on Morning Rays of Grace. I'm thankful for you and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
See y'all next week.